Hey everyone, welcome back to the Raw Roundup. This is the series where after every Monday Night Raw from the WWE, we go over all the important segments, all the important moments and matches that happened throughout the night and round up and review the Monday Night Raw as a whole. So without further ado, let's get straight into this episode of the Monday Night Raw Roundup. Straight away to start off the night, you had Gunther, his music hits and he storms into the ring. He starts calling out Damian Priest almost similarly to how he did in the build-up to SmackDown, and as he's about to say something derogatory, as he's about to call someone maybe street trash, out comes Damian Priest with his great new theme song, and he comes out and genuinely basically punks Gunther in the way I've never seen him get punked before. Clearly this is the aftermath of losing to Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel. Clearly this is the aftermath of facing someone who he didn't technically beat clean, the only man left around that he didn't beat clean at all now. Obviously back at SummerSlam, if you remember, Finn Balor basically saving Gunther when he was completely out of it and costing Damian Priest the World Heavyweight Championship, and obviously having beaten Finn Balor at Bad Blood so definitively that, as far as I can see and you can see, he's in the rearview mirror, he's out of the picture. We've got Damian Priest going straight up against Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship at Survivor Series, now confirmed. So, like I said, in the ring, actually punks on the mic. He absolutely punks Gunther, makes him look like a scared little boy. This isn't the Gunther you know, this isn't the Lingenadal that you and I both have grown to love, hate, boo, cheer for. He is like a shell almost. He's taking this stuff. Damian Priest is provoking him, saying, I know you're not going to hit me. I know you're not going to rebuttal. I know you're not going to do this, that, and that because you know I beat you. And Gunther, just almost proving it all, keeps backing off, like proving Damian Priest right in like a really good little segment where Gunther's acting is actually like so top. Really good acting from Gunther. He looks completely different facially and just in his aura and stature than he normally does. While he's getting, obviously, punked by Damian Priest, Ludwig Kaiser comes out trying to defend his Lingenalal, comes to the ring, he calls Damian Priest street trash again, basically insulting him, and as he's just about to rip into Damian Priest, Gunther grabs the microphone, yells in his face, I thought I told you, da-da-da-da. This tease from last week, if you remember the last video, go back and watch it if you didn't. The last Raw Roundup, we had a little tease about Gunther falling out a little bit of Ludwig Kaiser, and it was obviously a really good segment. So building on from this, Ludwig Kaiser's perplexed. He says, no, I'm not going to let this street trash talk to you like that. Turns around, clocked in the face by Damian Priest, stands there. For the record, Damian Priest's aura just rose entirely. Lo and behold, Damian Priest, when you set him up, he always puts the ball in the back of the net. And he always rises to the occasion. And this is why Damian Priest is one of my favourite WWE superstars currently. And I'm so excited for this match now that it's announced for Survivor Series. Damian Priest, after absolutely flattening Ludwig Kaiser, stares down Gunther and just smirks. Gunther looks like he's about to go for him, and then, like a scared puppy, backs down and walks away, and has a bit of a yell at Ludwig Kaiser for getting involved in such a way. The match at SummerSlam, if you didn't see that video, I did do a SummerSlam PL recap. Go to the channel, look at the video, because one of the things I did say was this match was fantastic at SummerSlam, and it will be once again brilliant at Survivor Series War Games, and I cannot wait. I'm so glad it's now announced. And now we can move on after a fantastic opening segment to the second segment. We go from pure solid gold to PFC. But fret not. I know a lot of the wrestling community on the internet isn't a big fan of PFC. They have done nothing for me. I like the individuals in it. They are great performers. But PFC as a faction and in storylines has just been such a drain on the night. Every night they perform. It's not that they're putting on bad matches. It's more so the way their story is going. If there's anyone who can pull a fantastic segment, a fantastic match, a fantastic moment out of PFC, it is Damage Control, Io Sky and Kairi Sane, with, finally, after 3 months, the return of Dakota Kai. Still waiting on Asuka, but Dakota Kai has finally returned and gets to have her chance against the team that took her out in Kayfabe Storytime. Obviously took her out 3 months ago, demolishing her knee, taking 3 months off of her career. The match itself was pretty good. Like, again, if you have a bad match against Damage Control with these three incredible women, you are genuinely bottom tier. And I don't believe Sonya Deville, Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, I don't think they're bottom tier performers. Just in this gimmick, in this group, it's just not it. But the match itself cooked. It did what it needed to do. Once again, PFC eats another L. I can't wait to see them in like 2 months' time saying that they run the roster. But what do I know? After a great segment where Dakota Kai finally comes back, the match is won and everything is all good with Damage Control. Damage Control picks up the win. We're going to move on to the next segment now. So straight after that match, you thought it ended with the SmackDown sum up last video, but no. The Bloodline cinema has bled through to Monday Night Raw with people like Jey Uso and Sami Zayn still contracted to Monday Night Raw. You can imagine this story is going to stretch between probably all three of the brands, mainly Raw and SmackDown. So, we have Sami Zayn, newly anointed to the Bloodline once again. Ones to the sky. Just look at my previous video. It was a fantastic video where I went over everything that happened that episode of Friday Night SmackDown. Both the new Bloodline and the old Bloodline are looking for a fifth member. They talk about it. They start this search. Sami says he's got one guy in mind. He departs. Jay reminds Jimmy, hey, be nice. He's one of us again. And they all separate to look for that number 5 to go into their team. Bearing in mind that Solo Sikoa's Bloodline also needs that elusive number 5. Moving on to the next segment. Earlier on in the night, we had a little backstage segment between R-Truth and Kofi Kingston where Kofi is apologising for how Xavier Woods acted, basically leaving him to the Final Testament and The Miz to just beat down before the Wyatt Six ended up saving him. He's basically apologising as to why, and explaining himself as to why, he didn't come out and help Xavier Woods, stopping him in the end. All the while, in the background, there is Xavier Woods smirking to himself, having overheard the entire conversation, of course. Comes and asks what they're talking about. Kofi Kingston not exactly hiding it, basically trying to explain himself to R-Truth as to why neither of them came to help him, while the Final Testament and The Miz were beating down on him. As this argument starts brewing between Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, Butch, aka Pete Dunne, comes around the corner to confront R-Truth. There's been these funny little segments where he keeps calling him Butch and Pete Dunne, thinking they're separate people, just funny R-Truth stuff. And Kofi instantly jumps to his defense. Pete Dunne takes offense to Kofi Kingston jumping to R-Truth's aid and calls him up for a match. And so, moving further on in the night, this match comes underway. It is a pretty good match by obviously Kofi Kingston, who's a veteran, and Pete Dunne, who is good in the ring, especially at his craft. It's a good match, bit choppy due to the ad breaks, but Xavier Woods on the outside eventually decides he's going to help Kofi win, and while the referee's distracted, demolishes him on the outside. Instantly, as a silly face, Kofi Kingston comes out, starts yelling at Xavier Woods, getting all distracted, asking him why he did that, and Pete Dunne takes the time to recover and then takes him by surprise and gets the win. Xavier Woods is just resigned, and as he's trying to carry Kofi out of here, Kofi pushes him, huge argument erupts. Let's move on to the next segment that happened in the night. So after this match took place, you had the Judgment Day in the clubhouse, talking to each other. Finn and JD are finally back on TV with obviously Carlito, and they're showing off the titles for the first time in what feels like forever. Seriously, get these things off them, genuinely. Apparently they've got a tag team match scheduled for next week. I also feel it's important to say that I'm pretty sure the next couple Monday Night Raws are for Thanksgiving in America. Us are pre-taped, which is disappointing. Stay off of Wrestling Twitter if you want to avoid any spoilers, and obviously please don't leave any spoilers in the comments if you can avoid it. Either way, we have this segment where they're kind of arguing about how, Dominic didn't stop Damian Priest from getting that number 1 contendership to win back the title that Finn Balor made sure he cost Damian Priest at SummerSlam, and they're kind of getting close to each other face to face. Dominic steps up, puts his big boy pants on, and says, look, I got closer to a heavyweight title than you have in years, and that's the truth. I actually beat Damian Priest, you couldn't. And almost a fight breaks out, but fights happen in family. That's what they say, and they pull apart and they kind of get back on the same page, and Dominic Mysterio goes to set up a match. Let's move on to the next segment. In the next segment, you have big Bronson Reed walking to the ring, and similarly to previous nights before, he's calling out Seth, says, get out here. General Manager Adam Pearce has to know that this is happening and has to be okay with it, because every time he gives Bronson Reed a mic or Seth Rollins a mic, they call each other out and a huge brawl breaks out. Lo and behold, Bronson Reed calls him out, he runs out, and a huge brawl unfolds where obviously security guards are getting thrown around. No one definitively wins it. This time Seth doesn't go through the table with a tsunami. This time he manages to tackle him to the timekeeper area to avoid a tsunami through the table for 2 weeks in a row, obviously. And yeah, another one of these fantastic Bronson Reed segments where it's just chaos, and Seth Rollins was obviously fantastic on the mic as well. A really good segment. An important thing to note is as Bronson Reed was coming out to the ring to address the WWE Universe and obviously call up Seth Rollins for a brawl, in the background you can see Jey Uso attempting to sway Rey Mysterio to join the cause and be the 5th member for the original Bloodline in the War Games match at Survivor Series War Games. You can also visibly see Rey Mysterio shake his head and refuse. Obviously, not many people are thinking that Roman Reigns is a great guy for very good reasons, honestly. And not many people are willing to go and help him. So I think this is a really good little detail to show how alone right now the Bloodline is and how no one really has love for Roman. No one's forgotten his time in the past 3 years while he was champion. We'll move on to the next segment now. Keeping along the line of the Bloodline and attempting to recruit a 5th member for their Survivor Series War Games match, earlier in the night, Sami Zayn, again, just repeating myself here, but earlier in the night, Sami Zayn did mention how he's got one guy in mind. We cut, obviously, to now, where behind the scenes, you've got Seth Rollins talking to Adam Pearce, getting this match booked between Bronson Reed. He wants to finish it, and apparently next week we're going to see Bronson Reed versus Seth Rollins to end it all. I think this is a trilogy. I don't think this will be the end, and quite frankly, if it is the end, I think it'd be a big shame because they could have stretched this out for longer, unless we've got CM Punk coming back or something else going along those lines. We will see. But after Adam Pearce agrees and then walks away, in comes Sami Zayn. Now, Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins are on good terms. They like each other. They banded together at WrestleMania 40 to dethrone and get rid of the original Bloodline and the original Tribal Chief, obviously helping Cody Rhodes win the title and celebrating afterwards. I mean, Seth Rollins was the real MVP, putting his body on the line to make sure that Roman Reigns was out of power. And yet Sami Zayn thinks it is a smart idea to pitch the idea towards Seth Rollins and ask him, do you think you could put your grudge aside, go back to being brothers, and could you please be our 5th member to help us take on this new Solo Sikoa Bloodline? Everyone who knows wrestling understands how this would make exactly 0 sense. Seth Rollins has spent the last years trying to dethrone Roman Reigns. He's never lost to Roman Reigns before in a one-on-one match, and they have a history that is so extensive it might be the longest running storyline that is constant and embedded in the WWE right now. And it is filled with betrayal, backstabbings, and hatred. They might be brothers, but they are not friends. And obviously Sami Zayn forgot that when asking. Obviously, and thankfully, obviously to keep us, to keep it realistic, Sami Zayn gets rejected so hard by Seth Rollins, politely but so hard at the same time, rejected, and Seth obviously walks away. I thought this was a great segment. I thought it could have been a really, really dangerous thing to do to make Sami Zayn, the high and mighty man, help be just in one backstage segment, help Seth Rollins overcome literally like 10, 11 years of just story that these guys have with each other. And we move on to the next segment because this does come up again later in the night. We have Damian Priest versus Ludwig Kaiser. Obviously, this match was brought on because of what happened earlier in the opener, where Damian Priest demolished Ludwig Kaiser and stared down Gunther and basically showed up Gunther to be a little wuss. We had this match that, once again, Ludwig Kaiser is a fantastic worker. He's great in the ring, and he can take as many losses as he needs to, as it fits his character. And Damian Priest was just fantastic. It was a great match, really good. Obviously, I saw people who don't like Damian Priest, obviously, a little bit frustrated with how they are jobbing Ludwig Kaiser and how Ludwig Kaiser lost this match. Obviously, Damian Priest won. My question to you is, what would you do, and where would the story go if Damian Priest couldn't beat Gunther's henchman, but he's scheduled to face the final, not the final boss, but the main guy of Imperium at Survivor Series. He needed to win, and there was no debate in that, and it was a great match, and it was a great decision. We'll move on to the next segment because there's really not much to talk about there. It was just a good match and the right decision. Winter and Damian Priest have this stare down afterwards, and that is about it. Really hyped for Survivor Series War Games when this match obviously is taking place. Let's go into the next segment. If you are a Twitter user and you're a WWE fan, you may have come across this little thing called WWE Speed. This is where you have like 5-minute matches. I think it's 5 minute, might be less. 5-minute matches where obviously you have to pin the opponent in those 5 minutes to have won the match. Earlier, they did a genuinely star-studded match where they had Sheamus versus Braun Breaker, your current Intercontinental Champion. In the match, it went over the 5 minutes, the match went on too long, it was too good of a match, and no one won, and as a result, they started feuding. Come to Monday Night Raw, you had Braun Breaker being interviewed, basically chatting shit about Sheamus, saying he's ugly, how he's annoying, and Sheamus walks in, basically compares themselves, obviously mentions how he was just as arrogant, just has the same back when he first started and became one of the fastest ever to win a title in the WWE, that kind of thing. And basically the long and short of it is Sheamus versus Braun Breaker is announced for next week. It is a great little segment. I think the match will be fantastic. It's going to be another heartbreak because I don't see Braun Breaker eating 2 losses that quickly and dropping the belt twice that quickly. So hold your breath. I really don't think we're going to see Sheamus be a Grand Slam champion. The final Infinity Stone in his gauntlet is that Intercontinental Championship, but he's going to have to wait a little bit longer because I really don't see him winning this match. But it will be an amazing match nonetheless. Let's move on to the next segment. Just after Sheamus leaves and this match has been announced for next week, basically, we see Jimmy Uso ask Braun Breaker if he has a minute, alluding to the idea that he might be trying to recruit Braun Breaker as the 5th member for the Bloodline at Survivor Series War Game. This would make zero sense. I hope that they follow this up with Jay completely rejecting it, because right now the only single star, not faction member, that Jay Uso is feuding with is Braun Breaker. He took his Intercontinental Championship. He's the one he's feuding with right now. He cannot be part of the team. So, fingers crossed that's what happens. Let's move on to the next segment. So that's my sister. We're going to be doing a video together soon where she's going to guess the names of WWE wrestlers. Name a wrestler, past or present, right now. Any.
I don't want to go for a basic one.
Good, so don't say John Cena. Or The Rock.
Well, I only know the basic ones.
Go for a basic one.
Jey Uso.
Who?
Jey Uso. Okay, I'm gonna go.
That video will be fun. Anyway, let's actually get on to the next segment. So in the next segment, we see the Final Testament, Karrion Kross obviously leading the charge, and they bump into The Miz. Obviously, if you didn't see the last episode of the Raw Roundup, you really need to go and watch it. It shows how The Miz was kidnapped and basically tortured by the Wyatt Six into changing his ways almost. And we see The Miz looking genuinely petrified, looking traumatized, but he is out of wherever the Wyatt Six had taken him. Karrion Kross is like, you've got some things to explain. Obviously, he's still furious about how Uncle Howdy took out Paul Ellering when he was trying to get The Miz, and he's trying to get information out of The Miz. So, The Miz kind of says, no, I'm a changed man, you need to change too, you don't want any part of the Wyatts. Karrion Kross calls back to what he did in previous weeks, where he threatened to break The Miz's legs, drags him to the ring, drags him down the stage, and he gets this cut. I don't know how or where he got this cut in the build up to this, but he accidentally has this cut under his eye, which makes this all the more, ominous and scary almost. And then while he's almost about to kick The Miz while he's down, the lights go out, things start shutting down, the camera goes, phone lights are up, the fireflies are out, and the music hits, and the Wyatt Six are here. You have this face-off between Authors of Pain and the Final Testament versus the Wyatt Six, Uncle Howdy, and then this brawl breaks out between them. The Miz rolls out of the ring, Karrion Kross, obviously the leader of that faction, going up against Uncle Howdy, the leader of the Wyatt Six, and they're about to go up against each other, and The Miz comes back in with a steel chair and attacks Uncle Howdy from behind, basically getting the jump and surprising. They kind of teased almost a face turn so quickly, but I was so enthralled with obviously what was happening prior, I didn't even think about how The Miz is like this really good backstabber. So he faked being good and just to help Karrion Kross and obviously what he seems to be in right now, the Final Testament, get the jump on the Wyatt Six, and for the first time we see the Wyatt Six not only lose a confrontation, get laid out and demolished. They obviously embrace Karrion Kross and The Miz, and then they leave, and the only thing that ends this segment is the laughter of Uncle Howdy and the disturbed look on Karrion Kross's face, confused as to how he's laughing after obviously Authors of Pain and the Final Testament had destroyed Uncle Howdy and his faction members. Really good stuff. I can't wait to see how this feud's going. I do like Karrion Kross. I like the charisma he's been coming with recently. It wasn't doing too much for me previously, but I'm in with this now. I'm surprised they kept this until October. This would have been perfect for Spooky Month, but whatever, I'm excited to see where this goes, and let's move on to the next segment of the night. We see that after he's got this match confirmed and rejected Sami Zayn's offer, Seth Rollins is walking out, stopped and interviewed. Basically, they're asking him why he rejected Sami Zayn, and before he can answer, he sees something in the distance, says, "Please give me a minute," walks up, and he sees Solo Sikoa. Solo tries to recruit him for his team at Survivor Series War Games, so he can be the number 5 for the original. So he can be the new 5th member of the new Bloodline. Sami Zayn almost teases agreeing with it, basically says, "This isn't something I said to Sami Zayn, but I hate Roman Reigns. Next time I see Roman Reigns, it's going to end with his face down on the canvas getting stomped." And very much teasing Solo Sikoa, who's got his hand out ready to dap him up, all excited because he thinks Seth Rollins is about to agree, just for Seth Rollins to take it back on the last minute and say, "But I will never help a wannabe Roman Reigns," and then walks off, Jacob Fatu trying to follow him, but Solo Sikoa stopping him. Go on to the final segment of the night before we round up the entirety of this Monday Night Raw. We have the match between Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, your current women's tag team champions. The match itself has been well built up. They've had this feud going on for a while now. Obviously, they have to do something while they have Io Sky and that feud ready after she became the number 1 contender for the Women's World Championship. And obviously, while Rhea Ripley, the end game for this whole Liv Morgan title reign, while we're waiting for her to come back from her injury, we have this feud that's been cooking recently, honestly. Jade and Bianca and Liv and even Raquel have been good in this feud, so it's really good to see, obviously, it progress. Going into this match, I was excited for it. It had very, very, very little time. I'm saying 13 minutes, the match hadn't even started yet, and they're about to go into adverts. 13 minutes. So the match had maybe 10 minutes to do what it needed to do. The match itself, for the time, was perfectly fine. Honestly, Liv was good. Obviously, Jade and Bianca ended up winning the match, but not without shenanigans. During the match, obviously, we had Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax running down the ramp to aid Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, even though they were feuding with them going into Crown Jewel, and Liv just beat Nia at Crown Jewel. Ignoring that, they go to aid Liv and Raquel. Obviously, the more recent feud and loss probably hurts more, I guess, than the Crown Jewel stuff. Whatever. They go to aid them, and obviously to balance the scales, obviously it looks like we're about to see new tag team champions. I think the title was on the line. Quote me if I'm wrong, put it in the comments, but I think the title was on the line. But to even out the odds, we have Naomi, another member of the Big Three. Io Sky as well, to even out the odds, comes out as the number 1 contender, comes out to stop Liv Morgan from winning, I can only imagine, because it can't be to help Jade and Bianca, because literally this time last year, Bianca Belair and Io Sky and Damage Control were in a blood feud. But that aside, we'll ignore all that. I do believe we've just got our Women's War Games match. 4 individuals, either side a piece. Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton. 4 people that have been feuding for like a while now, obviously with Crown Jewel, but whatever. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill and Naomi with Io Sky. Io's the odd one out there. I don't know why she's helping. But either way, in the end, Jade and Bianca end up retaining and standing strong, the 4 of them. And that is what ends the night. I think they've just announced your Women's War Games match. Let's get to our roundup and review overall of the night. So I've got some things to say, obviously. The segments were fine. The booking decisions, I think, were great. The needle moved individually for each different story fantastically. Obviously, the New Day, Uncle Howdy and Final Testament. The main one, which is the Bloodline. Seeing them get rejected by multiple people is like a really good thing because it fits how it should be realistically. It makes us feel like, you know, the content we're consuming is not, you know, so silly like it is sometimes. So overall, the decisions were great, the matches were great. I thought the night felt a teeny bit flat. It wasn't like the best Monday Night Raw. It wasn't like the worst either, but like it wasn't the greatest. I thought the decision making for when the segments happened wasn't exactly the best. I think they could have ended with a more concise and obvious ending, or at least mention, okay, this is your Women's War Games announced, rather than leaving it up to the interpretation, because if it's not, why have they ended up on a random overbooked tag team match? I think the reason why it felt a little bit flat was because I think personally I found out that they were about to start pre-taping Raws, so it felt a little bit choppy. I'll wait for the next episode of SmackDown to see what happens with the Bloodline story and who they get for number 5. I think they could just leave it at 4 and it'll be fine, but they seem to be committing to 5 for this main event, so let's see. Survivor Series War Games is looking good, and I'm excited for the card and it to develop to see what kind of show we're going to get as one of the bigger shows for WWE. So, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Raw Roundup. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you this Friday for the SmackDown Sum Up.